DreAllDay.com.
You're now tuned in to the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day, to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there even when the success you've expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, we're not done. You get a huge dose of personal initiative. That is the go-getter energy that moves all of us, yes, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of wait for things to happen. Then what I'm going to do here, what we're going to do together every single day, so we're going to put this together into a series of frameworks, strategies, propositions, ways to approach life, mindsets, mentalities, and did I say frameworks? Yes, a whole lot more frameworks on top of that, a bunch of books. You'll listen to the daily masterclass. All of this is under one umbrella that is called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic, the line between mental health and mental toughness. We're going to make sure we create a delineation between these two, or try to understand, know where one ends and where the other one begins, so that we know what we're talking about when we are addressing these things, and so that you know where I'm coming from when I address these things. Now, before I get into that, tell everybody who doesn't know that I send out a daily motivation text every single morning. Any of you who want to get that daily motivation, it's free of charge, straight to your phone every day. Just send me a quick text and say hello right now at the number 305-384-6894. Once you're in there and we confirm that is you, you'll be getting that daily motivation every morning. And I do spend time engaging with people in my text community. So if you ever want to ask a question, share a challenge, something like that, some feedback, anything like that, you can also engage with me right there through that text. So the number again, 305-384-6894. Text me now. That number's down below in the show notes as well. And you can engage with me there and get the daily motivation. So this topic, the line between mental health and mental toughness, I touched on this a little bit in a couple episodes where I was talking about, I talk about mental toughness in a lot of episodes of this show, where I've talked about mental health, and I've talked about some situations that have occurred over the last year, specifically in the sports world, where you have players or athletes just not showing up, not fulfilling their duties, and then they're either their supporters or maybe sometimes the athletes themselves saying, well, no, this is a mental health situation. And I've felt a few times that some athletes have abused this subject of mental health to defend themselves, when what really happened was them just not showing up, them just not holding up their end of the bargain in whatever it was that they were doing. And then because they cited mental health as the reason for their situation, people get to defending them. Well, you can't say anything about this person because it's mental health. And no, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with people abusing a subject just so that they can gain some sympathy for themselves, when at the same time, when everything was working in their favor, they weren't saying anything about this. They weren't saying that this was a problem. They weren't saying this was an issue. They just using it as I said, like a shield. And I'm gonna get into what I mean here, and you'll understand exactly where I'm coming from by the time we get through this masterclass. So just listen, take notes, and anything you want to challenge me on, go ahead and do so. You got my text number. It is right there in the show notes. So let's get right into it. The topic, once again, is the line between mental health and mental toughness. First of all, let's get some definitions so that you know where I'm coming from here, and we're on the same page, or at least you know what page I'm on when I'm talking about mental health and mental toughness. So first of all, definition of mental health, this is coming straight from mentalhealth.gov, mentalhealth.gov. Quote, mental health includes our emotional, psychological, and social well-being. It affects how we think, feel, and act. It also helps determine how we handle stress, relate to others, and make choices. Close quote. That's the definition of mental health. Everything about how we think, feel, act, emotional, psychological, social well-being, all of that stuff. So that's a lot. Mental health, that's a very wide definition. Now let's get a definition of mental toughness. I grabbed this one from jonathanfader.com. jonathanfader.com. Quote, mental toughness is the idea of being able to push past failures by remaining positive and competitive. It also involves training and preparing oneself to be mentally ready for whatever challenge comes our way. Close quote. Now, you also know that I talk about mental toughness every day when I introduce the show. I say the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. Mental toughness is, by this definition that I'm giving, both of these definitions actually, mental toughness is actually an element of mental health, because mental health is all of our emotional, psychological, and social well-being that affects how we think, feel, and act. And mental toughness is one of those abilities. It's part of that emotional, psychological, and social well-being. It's your ability to remain positive and competitive. As I say, showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success has not appeared. And it also involves mental toughness. Also involves getting yourself ready for the anticipated challenges of the future. So mental toughness is part of your mental health. So if you look at your mental health as a big, let's say a big house with a bunch of rooms in it, mental toughness is just one of the rooms in that house. Now, not everyone uses these definitions, of course, and this is the reason why I want to make clear what definition I'm using of both mental toughness and mental health, because one of the challenges these days in any type of discourse, especially on subjects in which people disagree, is people moving the goalposts, changing definitions around just to fit the narrative of the point that they want to make in certain situations. So that's why I'm making sure I'm being clear where I'm standing here. So mental health has been defined very flexibly by many people, and which is one of the reasons why we're even having this conversation here and why we're talking about this. So I want to make sure we clear some things up with what we talk about here on today's episode. So let's get further into it. Now that we're clear on the definitions, anybody got any questions about the definitions? Good. Now let's get into it, moving on. Point number 2. The topic, once again, is the line between mental health and mental toughness. Number 2, mental health, and I'm putting that in quotation marks. When someone says mental health about some situation or something that they're doing or something that they didn't do, or maybe a situation where maybe they didn't live up to a certain expectation, theirs or someone else's, mental health as a phrase or as a reason, let's say, is not a substitute nor an excuse for a lack of mental toughness. Shall I repeat? Mental health is not a substitute nor an excuse for a lack of mental toughness. If you're in a situation in which your mental toughness fails you, holding up mental health, I'm challenged by my mental health is challenging me right now. I need some time off for mental health. The reason why I didn't finish the competition that I entered is because of my mental health. The reason why I'm not going to show up for my team when my team is expecting me to show up is mental health. All right, that is a poor excuse for you not showing up. That's a lack of mental toughness, because again, going back to our definition of mental toughness, pushing past failures, remaining positive, remaining competitive, preparing yourself to be mentally ready for whatever challenge comes your way. If you fail in that area and then you hold up and say, oh, well, it was mental health, that doesn't make it okay. That doesn't just cancel everything out and say, okay, well, we'll just let everything go because it's mental health. No, if you don't show up and deliver on your mental toughness rather, then yeah, your mental health needs some work. You are right that your mental health needs work, but that doesn't excuse your lack of mental toughness. I hope I'm making that clear. I think I'm making this pretty clear. Mental toughness being an element of mental health. We can't just say, well, hey, something's wrong with my mental health, so everybody leave that person alone. Nobody criticize that person. Nobody can point out that this person lacks mental toughness because it's a mental health challenge. Again, it's a part of mental toughness is an element of your mental health. So it's kind of like I am playing basketball and I shoot an air ball for the game-winning shot, and then I say, well, something's wrong with my wrist. Well, if you knew something's wrong with your wrist, you shouldn't have been on the court, because how are you going to shoot a basketball? How are you going to play basketball with a hurt wrist? I mean, you can't score any points. You can't shoot. So it's unfair for a person to fail in that area. It'd be unfair for me to fail in shooting the basketball and then after the game say, well, the reason why I couldn't make any shots today is because my wrist is hurting. Well, what are you doing playing in a basketball game with a hurt wrist if you knew your wrist was hurt? And what are you doing getting yourself into some situation in which you're being depended on, counted on, paid, compensated by somebody, yet you believe something's up with your mental health, which means your mental toughness might be part of it. So that's why you can't compete. That's why you can't show up. That's why you can't do the job that you signed up for. Then you shouldn't have showed up to the job in the first place. That's where I stand on it when it comes to mental toughness and mental health working together. Mental toughness is part of your mental health, just as physical toughness is part of your physical health. If you lack mental toughness, then that means your mental health needs some work. So you are correct. If anyone ever says, well, I need to take some time off for mental health so I can work on my mental toughness. You might not say that mental toughness part, but that's part of it. You are correct. But understand something. It is not that if you make a show of lacking mental toughness, again, mental health is not a shield that you can use to excuse that lack of mental toughness. If you just come up short when it comes to your toughness, then you just have to own that. Maybe you don't have to say anything. Maybe you know it in your mind. Maybe you'll talk about it in private with the people that you know, love, and trust. But this is the deal. Mental health you can't just use mental health as a catch-all to block you from any type of critique or criticism or objective, constructive feedback when you don't do the job that you signed up to do, that you said you were going to do. When people quit at something that they were expected to complete, do not, or when someone doesn't show up to something that they were expected to be there for, or when someone bails out of something that they have committed to, and then they say that they did so because they needed to care for or they needed to prioritize their mental health, now that doesn't make it okay. And this is the reason, the main crux of why I'm talking about this here today is because I've seen this being abused. And being that my brand is all based on these 4 elements: discipline, confidence, mental toughness, and personal initiative. When I see someone not exuding one of these in something in which they're expected to do so, especially when we're talking about professionals here, because the stuff that I talk about here on this show and in my brand period is not about amateurs. Right? My material is not targeted towards amateurs. I do not work with amateurs. My business is not based on working with amateurs. Now, if there are any amateurs who are listening to this, I appreciate you, keep listening, but the purpose of what I talk about here is to angle towards a professional. So hopefully you're on your way to being a pro, so then you'll be able to see and feel exactly what I'm talking about. You're not just experiencing it in theory through listening to me talk about it, but this is for the professionals. So as a professional, you who is listening to this right now, you can't not deliver on one of these elements and then have an excuse for why you didn't get your result. If you're not being disciplined and then your health suffers, well, we know why, right? If you lack confidence and then you're unable to close that sales presentation, well, we know what happened, right? There's no story to be told. There's no excuse to be made. If you didn't show up and deliver the way you were supposed to, or you just didn't show up and even try, as we've seen some people do, well, you can't just say, oh, well, I just needed to get some time off for my mental health. I got to prioritize my mental health now, and now nobody can criticize me because I brought up the safe word of mental health, and that's a good way to put it. People are using mental health as a safe word. You throw that out there, then automatically that means you're immune to being criticized. That means you're immune to any type of critique. That means nobody can say anything about what happened because, oh, it's mental health. No, I'm completely throwing that away. If you quit, you don't show up, or you bail out of a commitment, mental health doesn't make it, using the mental health safe phrase, doesn't make it okay that your mental toughness failed you. Point number 3. Today's topic again is the line between mental health and mental toughness. Number 3, mental toughness is one of the frontline soldiers of your mental health. Like, everyone has a mental health, let's say, profile. Every one of us may have a mental health profile. Your mental toughness is your ability, as it says again, I'll read from that definition again, being able to push past failures and remain positive and competitive despite the fact that you're going to face some setbacks, despite the fact that sometimes things are not going to be working as you want them to be working. And it also is about preparing yourself for some challenges that may come your way, preparing yourself mentally for some challenges that may come your way. So mental toughness is kind of like the frontline soldier that is defending the fort of your mental health. There may be some other areas of your mental health that are more vulnerable, that are not so apt to combat and competition. That's why you put your mental health out there on the front line so we can defend you. It's kind of like a security guard. Your mental toughness is like the security guard of your mental health. That's a good way of putting it. So being that mental health is part of your psychological well-being, would you agree that when you're mentally tough, that you feel better physiologically about any possible challenges that you may come up against, that you feel better psychologically about any challenges that you may come up against? You see, when your mental toughness is intact and you feel mentally tough, question, is it easier or harder to handle stress? Usually it becomes easier, because the more tough you are, the more mentally tough state you are in, because this can change moment by moment, but the more mentally tough the state that you are in, the easier it is for you to handle stress, easier it is for you to handle challenges, the more prepared you feel to handle any situation that you may come up against, no matter what it is. And when you're not feeling mentally tough, when you feel mentally weak, you feel vulnerable, you feel that you could be attacked from anywhere, the smallest things may set you off, The littlest thing may cause you to collapse emotionally, spiritually, mentally, physically, just because you're not feeling tough in the moment. It's not that you're not tough, it's just you're not feeling tough. And this is why you have to make sure, especially those of you who are in competitive fields, any kind of competitive situation that you're going to be in life, you got to learn how to manage your emotions. You're in the emotional management business, and I talked about this in an episode I'll tell you in a second. In episode 1782, I told you that hurt feelings are being used as a weapon in the emotion Olympics, that people are basically holding up their emotions as a shield for any type of criticism. Well, look, I'm emotional. My feelings are hurt. It's mental health. And that means we can't criticize that person. And again, I already told you how I feel about that. In episode number 1781, I told you how to emotionally detach and still produce results in your life. In episode number 560, I told you you're in the emotional management business. Episode 447, how to keep your emotions in check when the stakes are high. Mental toughness makes your mental health better. It protects your mental health. It allows you to work on your mental health because you're mentally tough enough to deal with the challenges of life. And listen, anything you do in life, playing a sport, running a business, starting a family, anything you want to do, there will be mental challenges. There's nothing that you can do in life that does not come with a mental challenge. Nothing you can do in life that doesn't come with the shit sandwich that I explained in episode 1663. Mental toughness is like the immune system for your mental health. And it's perfect timing for me to say that, coming off the heels of what we talked about the previous 2 days. The more mentally tough you are, the better your mental health can handle the challenges of life. And the challenges of life are like a virus floating around. Each challenge is like a different type of virus. But the stronger your immune system, the less that virus can affect you. Better chance that you can beat the virus, better chance you can survive. Even if you get infected with the virus, better chance you can survive when your mental toughness is intact. So what I want people to understand from what I'm talking about here today is that mental toughness and mental health are not two different things. Mental toughness is enveloped within mental health and is actually your frontline soldier. So any of you who wants to improve your mental health, you want to take time for your mental health, you want to give priority to your mental health, one way to do it is to invoke and start strengthening your mental toughness. Because the stronger that is, the more time and space and energy you can give to your mental health. But you don't have one without the other. It's kind of impossible. Even if you're very mentally tough, that is helping your mental health. And if you have very solid mental health, it's impossible to have solid mental health without having mental toughness. So these kind of work together. You're not going to have one without the other. Doesn't mean they're both going to be in good shape, but neither one of them exists in a vacuum. So that said, recapping today's class, the line between mental health and mental toughness. First of all, the definitions. Mental health includes our emotional, psychological, and social well-being. It affects how we think, feel, and act. It also helps determine how we handle stress, relate to others, and make choices. Mental toughness is the idea of being able to push past failures by remaining positive and competitive. It also involves training and preparing oneself to be mentally ready for whatever challenge comes our way. So mental toughness, by definition, is an element of mental health. Now, again, I'm making sure I'm clear on these definitions. People like to move the goalposts on people, depending on the conversation. Moving on, number 2, mental health is not a substitute nor an excuse for mental toughness. For a lack of mental toughness. Mental toughness is part of the mental health. So if you quit, you don't show up, you bail out, you can still be critiqued, you can still be criticized, even if you try to use the safe word of mental health. All right, that doesn't excuse you. Number 3, mental toughness is the frontline soldier of your mental health. So being that mental health is part of your psychological well-being, the more tough you are mentally, the better you can focus on that psychological well-being, the more time and space you give yourself to focus on your mental health. Mental toughness is like the immune system for your mental health, and the challenges of life are a virus. The stronger the immune system, the better chance you beat the virus. Send me a text if you want to get my daily motivation, which comes out every day. I guarantee you I will help you sharpen up your mental toughness. My number is 305-384-6894. And any of you who wants help with your accountability, strategizing, and execution of what you're doing personally or professionally, I guarantee that'll involve some mental toughness as well. I can help you out with that. And my 3rd-day mastermind is the only place I offer one-on-one coaching. My link to sign up for a call to talk about it is down below in the show notes at workonyourgameuniversity.com. Work on your game. Dre all day.